everyone. This is Donna Schmid. I want to welcome you to Eyes Wide Open. We are starting a new segment of Eyes Wide Open, and it's called Blast from the Past, where I'm going to be putting up some old radio shows that I did several years ago that I still think are actually very important in today's age. So I hope you enjoy it. Let me know. Like, share, comment, and our regular Eyes Wide Open shows will continue as usual. Thank you and enjoy.
Good evening, everyone. I'm your host, Donna Schmid, with my co-host, Lori, and we're here on Pathways to Authenticity Radio, and we're going to be talking about communication, how we connect this evening. So welcome aboard. I don't know if you've brought your cup of Java, your glass of wine. I've actually got a glass of water this evening. I'm really living it up tonight. Hey, Lori, are you with me?
I am, and good evening. And I happen to have my glass.
It is good. And you have a glass of what?
I have a glass of wine and I have water. So I'm doing both.
Okay, double-fisted drinker this evening. Sounds great. Hey, tonight, I want to talk about communicating because obviously we do that. And the thing about communication is that most of us fail to recognize is that we communicate, but few of us actually connect with one another, and that usually leads to misunderstandings and confusion, which leads to hurt feelings, maybe even a little bit of anger, hostility. You never know to what degree it's going to reach. And so tonight I wanted to talk a little bit about how do you know when you're actually connecting with somebody? I mean, what's the sign? Or even better yet, what are the signs that you're not connecting? Because sometimes those become a little bit more obvious. And when you recognize that you're not connecting, what are some of the things you can do? That might help, especially, well, I guess it covers across the board, either, in your professional life or in your personal life as well. And it also, I've noticed, even extends into things like text messages and emails and electronic, communication as well. It's a little different, but it's still, how do you know when you're not connecting? How do you know when your point's not getting across, when you're not being heard, you're not being understood, and therefore not being respected? So, sound like a deal today?
Yeah, boy, I'll tell you, that's and I like the word respect because that's a good word. There's a lot of times when you are communicating with someone that there is a lack of respect, as you're talking, and so it's true. That's big.
Yeah, and from what I've come to understand is communication. Really, you have to learn first how to allow yourself or somebody else to communicate with you. And a lot of times when we're in a conversation, we're not being really good active listeners. We will be in our heads thinking about the next thing that we want to say, or maybe we're actually busy doing something, texting, whatever. But it's important that when you are in communication with someone that you give them your undivided attention. And if you can at that moment, then at least be honest enough to say, hey, I want to talk about this, or I'm interested in talking with you, but can you give me, in a few minutes, can I call you back? I mean, we've done that many times on the phone. You've called me, and I might be like in the middle of something or just ending something, and it's like, hey, let me give you a call right back. Because I could, keep you on the line. I could, I'm a great multitasker. I can do that. But it's kind of rude, I think, to expect you to wait for me. So if I just say, hey, I want to talk to you, but what I'm really saying is I want to give you my undivided attention, and I'm not able to do that right at this moment. Can you wait a few minutes, and then we kind of negotiate between the two of us what's going on and how we can fit each other in that time slot.
Right.
So I really believe it's learning how to listen first. I think that's a big key issue of it, of connecting with somebody, because a lot of times we'll get into mean, I do it. I do it on the show with you, for Pete's sake. I did it last week. I even caught myself, most of the entire show as I was yakking, and, you were pretty much just saying, just agreeing with me. Such a good friend. You're a great co-host. Yeah, just
okay, and
whatever I say.
Right. Well, let me just add, though, it was interesting for me to hear as well. So, I mean, that's why, believe me, I've done my share of yakking to you. So I definitely did not feel, at all slighted. It was interesting to me, and I'm excited, about this, because I think that communication, I think we've, and you and I've talked about this, I think communication is the basis to, life. And, I did not realize how important it was until the last year. Could be because you have taken all these classes in it, but, it has come to my attention now about how important it is. But it is true, and listening to someone, and I think that when you listen to somebody and you're interested, or you're empathetic, or you're sympathetic, or whatever the case may be, when you're listening to them, you are connecting to them energetically, and so that makes it feel more authentic. And there's that word again, but, it just does.
And how do you know? How do you know, really, when someone is connected with you? I mean, they could be looking at you, but how do you really know? What are some of the things, and better yet, instead of talking about how you know they're connected, let's talk about first how you know that you're not connected to them. How do you know that you're speaking, but it's either going in one ear and not the other, or it's going over their head? How do you know? What are some of the signs that you personally have seen that tells you that you're not connecting with this person?
Well, it's, as you know, for me in my work, it's very easy to find somebody who doesn't connect with you. And I have, like if somebody sits down in my chair and I start to talk to them, even if from the very beginning, what do you want how do you want your hair? I don't care. Okay, so you don't care. Do you like it really short? Well, you do whatever you want to do. I mean, that kind of stuff that's non-connecting, and it's like, immediately. And I have to tell you, I also know just for myself, like I just feel it, I mean, after the first two words, I'm like, so, I physically feel it, and that could be just me because I'm kind of a physical person anyway, so I physically feel it in my body. I get kind of a, and I think this comes from, and we've talked a lot about this. I think that it's your triggers of life. It's like your triggers. It's your thing as to know, how to protect yourself. And I feel it in my body, which is I immediately go to, okay, I'm done. Like this doesn't feel good to me physically, and so, which happens for me in my job. It physically doesn't feel good, and I'll do it, and I can continue to cut somebody's hair and not be connected to them at all. And when that happens, I usually just kind of cut the communication, and I just cut their hair, and a lot of people like that, and that's fine. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, if that's really what they want to do, they don't want to converse. They don't want to have a conversation. That goes too. Sometimes how I'll tell is I'll be looking at somebody and they're not looking at me. Now, I do know that there's people that tend to sometimes look down. They're in their minds. They're thinking while I'm speaking to them. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not paying attention or we're not connecting. They're, absorbing or processing what it is that I might be saying. But it's just, they will be looking at you, and then all of a sudden they gaze away, or they look at their watch, or they look towards the door, or they'll look over at the clock, and it's like, oh, okay, guess we're done.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Because they said too much. Or another one that I've noticed that you were talking about feelings is I'll notice that there's this glazed look that comes over their eyes, as if they're staring at you or looking at you, but they're staring at you, and nobody's home. I don't know if they've checked out somewhere, or there's too much information going on, or, I'll even ask, do you need some time to process this? Did I speak fast?
Right. That's my husband. I live with that on
whatever.
Basis.
Yeah. Or, I love the ones where you're talking with them, like if you've met in a restaurant or something, and, you're, hi, how are you, how's it going? Just some minor chit-chat, no connection yet, and they're, like, already looking over your shoulder. And it's like, whoa, okay, fine. Well, hey, I can tell you're, got some things going on, and you need to leave. That's fine. Hey, glad running into you. See you next time. See ya. But when you're sitting there talking to somebody, and you are engaged in a conversation, how I know that we're really not connected is I love when people try to finish my sentences, because I do know that I talk fast most of the time, but then there are times when I'm like struggling for a word, or maybe that's not quite how I want to say it. So it's like, well, let me say this a little differently. And so they'll immediately blurt out, like they're reading my mind of what I want to say. And it's like, no, that's not it. And then it's like, okay, well, we'll change it a little bit more. It's like, no, that's not it either. And now I've totally lost the thought that I was going for, because they're not connecting with me. They're not allowing me that opportunity to speak and to process my thoughts and gather them and express myself, and it's frustrating, and so I don't feel connected. And then I get to the point where it's like, I don't even want to talk to this person because they're really not listening.
Right.
Let's see. What are some of the other ones?
I had a strange situation, and I kind of go back to this connection thing of again, on an energetic, almost a spiritual level, because I had an interesting thing happen, and I was gathered with, it was actually at a family reunion, and there was, a few of us sitting around, and we were all, getting, like, we're all connected, we're chatting, we're all connected, and the people that were sitting there was one person that was a little more political, and then all of us, and so it was funny because we were all completely connected, and we were chatting, and we were having a really good time, and then there was this statement, or 2 or 3 statements that were made politically and real aggressively, and it was the craziest thing, because it was said, and then like everyone else just got quiet. It like hung there, completely. It's just hung in mid. And I thought to myself, wow, that was crazy, because and the person recognized it. And that was kind of the cool thing, was that the person recognized it and kind of backed off, and so there is an example that here we were all connected, and then this aggressive, these aggressive statements came out, which we weren't in that space, like we were not even in that place, and it just, it was really interesting. It was really interesting, and then it was kind of dropped. Because no one fed into it, and
that's a great point to bring up, Lori, because the other thing that I wanted to share was that in order for you to be able to connect with somebody, you have to be able to extend a hand first. So in other words, instead of me talking about myself and this particular person's own belief systems right away, before you even know if that's going to fit in with the group, which obviously it didn't because of the response that happened. So it's a good rule of thumb that if you're not happy with the response of what your communication is, then change the way you're saying it, because people are not getting it, or people aren't accepting it, and you got to know your audience. And so there again, you've got a group of people, and you've got somebody that walks up and just immediately starts talking about their belief systems, of their political belief systems, and the majority of the group didn't want to talk about that, and two, they might not have shared the same belief system as this person, and so nobody's going to connect, nobody's going to say anything. It was like total shutdown. I mean, gosh, I could just imagine the energy that was passing around between everybody, being uncomfortable and not knowing what to do and not wanting to say. Yeah, creepy, that's a good word. Creepy.
It just hung there, like it was just dead silent and hung there, the statements, and it was just like, whoa. And it completely shifted the whole energy at the time, and then it was like, oh, okay, and then back into it, I mean, it was the first time I'd ever witnessed anything like that, like it probably had happened before, but, I've gotten so much more aware of things that it was just like, whoa, wow, I actually witnessed that happening, to somebody. Yeah. Which is good, to see that. Because you're right.
Yeah, to have an awareness of, absolutely, of what's not working. Yeah, I agree.
Right, of what's not working. Yeah.
There's a couple components that, with that goes along with communicating and connecting with people. And one is the ability to listen. And of course, in being kind and considerate, of course, when someone else is speaking, to listen to them and then to really reflect back that you've heard them, because, to restate it or reframe it in a different way, to acknowledge the fact that I heard what you said and it has a viable place in our conversation, and it's good information and input, into what's being said. Or maybe it's not. Or maybe you say something that I might not totally agree on, and then I can always just say, well, that's an interesting point of view that you're taking, Lori, but it's not one that I share. Or I could even take it in a different direction and say, okay, Lori, can you tell me more about that, because I'm not clear on it. I'm not exactly sure I'm fully understanding what you're saying. And then you have the opportunity to dissect it a little bit more, share with me a little bit more, or even say to me, okay, Donna, well, what part do you need clarification on? I mean, this is being really clear and open in the communication, with devoid of emotions, because I always tell people that's the key thing that you're not connecting, is if you become emotionally charged with what someone's saying, then you become defensive. You feel like you have to defend yourself, and then there's not a connection. That's a complete, recognize that immediately, that if you're thinking that you have to defend yourself or defend your point of view, then there's a misconnection. And you need to recognize that right away.
Yeah, and the thing about that is that I have been in conversation with people that there was absolutely, there was nothing to defend. It was just a statement made. You didn't have to defend it, yet they defended. Now, that is that's sort of their issue, there's something going on with them that they come at it from a defensive mode. You know what I mean? There are, do you know what I'm saying? It's like,
I do. I do.
Yeah.
I've seen that. And sometimes, again, if you're just clear about it and just say, okay, I just noticed that you, when I said that, your facial expressions changed. Did I say something that offended you in any way, or do I need to clarify it, or what are you thinking? What are you thinking when I said that? What was going on? I mean, let them explain it to you what's going on, instead of you once again, it's just like people finishing each other's sentences, thinking that they've got the thought that you're looking for. You don't really know how they took it, and so you can say, hey, I noticed the shift, and just ask, and ask what it is that you just witnessed.
Right, and I guess I think part of it, too, is, like you and I have had, and we have not agreed on things, but I have never been upset about it. It's not like I have, well, you're telling me something that maybe I might not, agree with politically, because that's where we probably the only thing we differ on. Yeah, is and that's probably the only thing you and I disagree on. But the thing about it is that I never got upset. Like, I never was upset with your point of view. And now, had I gotten upset from your point of view, you were talking about the emotion part, then this is just a little FYI. If I was getting upset, I do need to look at myself and go, why am I so upset with this? Like, I shouldn't be upset because she's giving me her opinion. You know what I mean? So that's kind of just a throw in on that because I, you and I have talked about things and we don't get upset about it, and so it goes back to, like, I think I told you that, my son would always say, that's a great idea. Here's another perspective on that, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a great idea. So now I'm validated. I feel good because you heard me and you just told me it was, a great idea. Here's my perspective on it now, So,
and and you sometimes you don't even have to say if you don't mean that it is a good idea, but you can even say, okay, that's one way of looking at it, and I have a different way of looking at it. Would you like to hear it? Because, a lot of times you got to ask permission, too, because sometimes we elicit, our opinions and our belief systems on people, and maybe they don't want to hear it, just like you were talking about the group at the reunion. Those people, obviously, if they were asked, hey, do you want to know what I think about, political, and they, people then have the opportunity of saying, not right now, or, yeah, I want to talk about that. And then, then you have people that, yeah, I'm going to get up and go to another group, or I'm going to sit and discuss this, whatever the situation. But you should always ask permission. You should always ask permission if you're going to be sharing your belief or your point of view with someone, because, again, you're right. You might not share it. And then I start, I agree. So, and to me, that's how you connect with people. I mean, it's courteous, it's respectful. You've got to listen to them. And this is all if you want to connect, by the way, because there are times when I don't want to connect. So all you're going to get is nice and polite. And if you push it, you might not get that.
Right.
For sure. Yeah, because I hate just dribble-drabble, talk. I really do. I just get so frustrated with people that just talk really just to hear themselves talk. And this is just me. Maybe other people like this, but if I catch myself doing this, I will even say, okay, I'm processing this out loud, but it's really helping me. So can you bear with me a little bit while I ramble on and carry on? And if you hear anything that I say that you think might be important, please repeat it back to me. I mean, I at least give people, a clue as to what I'm doing when I'm going on. But sometimes people will sit in front of me and they'll be talking, and it's almost as if they're talking to themselves because they're just rambling on and on and on, and they're answering themselves in their own head, out loud, mind you. And I'm just sitting there observing. And at one point it's like,
trust me, I know.
I don't know where I fit in with this conversation. But
my gosh, I know.
It's crazy.
It is disturbing. It is
mentally so, yes.
Just energetically disturbing. Yes. So no, those people
I've done that. So I'm not saying I haven't done it, but I think that the thing is I'm aware I'm doing it, and I know when I do that, it helps me. It does. But I'm not sure if these people know they're doing it. I'm not sure if this is not how they communicate on a regular basis. Because it's hard for them to form a thought. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's probably some of them. I think there's probably some of them that are processing out loud. But I have been the victim of that myself with you. And again, you go, and here's the cue, is when you're going, Mm-hmm. And I'm just
really am listening.
No, I know you're listening to me, but it is you're not giving me what I want, which is to say how great I am and what an asshole my husband is, or whatever, And it's like it's kind of like the conversation. It's like you're just not feeding into it, and so it makes me awaken up, and I go, okay, talking to myself. This is all just garbage. It means nothing. Let's get to the real point now. So yeah. So I mean,
I want you to know that I am listening to you and I am taking it all in.
Oh, I know
because
you are.
There are times that you'll do this and I'll go, Lori, did you just hear what you said? Did you just hear what you said, Lori? Because that was important. So, and sometimes I'll even take notes. It's like, okay, because I don't want to forget, because sometimes when, and I know I do this myself, it's like you get going and you're really spouting out some really good stuff, but it's disjointed. It's not connected. And so I'm like writing stuff down, so it's like, okay, I got to remember to tell her that. And then when you get done, and then half the time, really half the time, once you finish, you'll go, oh, you know what, I just figured it out. And you'll tell me back, and it's like, okay, she got it.
Right.
And all I have to say is, yeah, Lori, that's exactly what I got too. I said, okay, fine. I'm glad you heard it. I'm glad you figured it out, because I was just going to, throw it right back at you and see what you thought. Because, sometimes we do need to get it out of our heads. Mm-hmm. And then that way we can hear it, actually audibly hear it, what we're saying, to process it. So I do know that's important. I'm just referring to those kinds of people that do it on a regular basis. That's how they communicate in public. You and I, when we're emotionally charged and we start rambling and carrying on like that, I think we both know as friends what's going on, and we just need to, give each other the space we need to figure this out.
Right.
But it's better than talking to the wall. It's better than keeping it in your head, and that kind of thing. But I'm referring to people that just do this on a regular basis. I don't know it's how their brain works or what, but those people, I find it for myself very difficult to connect with. I really do.
Well, it's so disconnected. Yeah. It's because they're so disconnected from what they're saying, and I think that's a lot of it as well. They're so disconnected, and they're so discombobulated with all their conversation that you're like, what'd you just say? What was the point there? So people like that,
and that's much stuff going on.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. And that's where coaching comes in too, because a lot of times people will come in and they will, they'll say things like that. Well, they'll start at one thing and they'll go to another extreme, and once they kind of get all of that stuff out, that layered stuff, then they're able to go underneath it and really look at what the issue is, what's really bothering them, what they really want to talk about. And then as they're doing that, if you just ask a lot of open-ended questions with them to get them to think about it more, they end up coming up with their own resolution. They always do, and it's always good, and it's always very empowering to watch somebody go through that process. So that's kind of what's really fun about coaching, in a way, is you're really helping people to give them the space that they need to dig down in, and communication is another one thing with that as well, because you're listening to them, attentively listening to them, and allowing them that opportunity to sift through their own stuff and find what they really need. So, Well, gosh, we've talked for a whole half hour. Go ahead and finish your thought there, and then we'll close. But go ahead.
What I was going to say is just that I know that when one of the most important questions you always ask is, what do you need from me? And I think that is such a validating, loving question, because it is what at the time it is. You mean, what is it that you need from me?
Yeah.
And if it's like nothing, then it's just, I just wanted to vent,
Yeah. So, how can I help you? How can I support you? Yeah, you betcha.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's part of that.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't hear your last part. What was that?
I said that's like the part of going deeper, as well, because it's like, oh gosh, I have to really answer that. What do I want from this person?
Yeah.
Oh, I want to help me, or whatever, So.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Well, thank you again for tuning in, my friend. I so appreciate your input, and I'd love to communicate with you. We really do have a good rapport with each other, and I really appreciate that as friends. And maybe through just our little chat together, will actually help other people just to learn just from that, not necessarily the content, but just the framework of how we communicate with each other and listen to each other and allow each other the opportunity to share ideas and perspectives and beliefs and values. So I thank you for that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I know how great we solve all the world's problems.
That's exactly right.
Well, enjoy the rest of your wine and finish up your water, and I will be talking to you again real soon, and next week for sure, same time, same place, and we will communicate and think of something else really great to talk about. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, Lori. Bye-bye, everyone.
All right, bye.